Sngayla Uslang. I cannot get in to my screen. I need to start video and it can't start because the host has disabled it. So I need to have some help with that, and then we can start after that beautiful video.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I'd like to introduce our MC for today, and that's Ka'illjuus, Sealaska Director Lisa Lang. Lisa?
Thank you so much. I'm having some issues with, oh, there we go. There we go. Thank you, Dixie. I am so honored to be here today, and watching that video brings a lot of emotion out, and I hope everybody who's online today had time to observe it. I want to take a moment right now. Just, you know, it's dealing with language is always so emotional, but today I want to talk about, I want to go forward from this just 10 seconds of thought to those who have gone before us, and some of the COVID victims, and some of the people who are still in healing, because part of this language journey is built in a framework of healing. And so I'm just giving it a few seconds. Thank you. I am so absolutely honored to be here amongst these stellar people that that have dedicated their lives to continuing the journey of our language and our pathway. My job as the MC is to really to lay out the agenda and to do some introductions, and I plan to do that. I want to, before I introduce our guests and my co-hosts, I wanted to let you know how we had a little discussion about how we were going to lay this out. And so going through the agenda, I will be doing this introduction of myself very briefly, and then talking about this, what I call a narrative, this story that we are going to be sharing with you today. And then I will introduce our honored guests who's online, and our co-hosts as well. And then I will go back to talking to one of our co-hosts, Miriah Twitchell, and we're going to talk a little bit about the relationship, the partnership, the collaboration with Tlingit and Haida. And before I move on, I'd like to thank the Sealaska Board of Directors for having the incredible vision to support our speakers who need this support that this grant specifically provides. And I'd like to thank Tlingit and Haida President Peterson and their executive committee, because they also stand with the language speakers, and you need to have that to carry this journey forward. So then we will go to Dr. Twitchell will be doing question and answering with the learners in this specific program. We'll be doing a little shout, a call to action, and then we'll close it out. And so I will begin telling you, my name is Ka'illjuus. We prefer to use our Haida names, and I really enjoy that. That's part of our call in Heidelberg. Kuyang has often asked us to use our name in the public forum, so I do that. I live in Heidelberg, Hiktat Handalai. I live here. I am many things. I am an attorney. I am a chief justice for the tribal courts at Tlingit and Haida. That's part of what I do. I'm also have been for 10 years the executive director for the Haida Foundation, which is a nonprofit, grassroots driven, community-based nonprofit that focuses on our language. That has been an honor to work on that, and that's just about who I am and what I do. I think we all wear 100 hats. My idea of being able to host today as an MC was really an honor, because the language has always been in my heart and part of what I do. Like many of the people involved today, it is a lifetime dedication, and it is oftentimes moments like this today that you wish to tell your story and you wish to get it out there so that the world can either offer support in whatever method that they can, or they can start to engage with the language community. And that was one of the hopes that we had. In 2013, Sealaska was having a very, very difficult time financially, and they did some really, really in-depth look at themselves. And in the last 7 years, I'm a new director. I just came on board. Three new directors are on board. Three female new directors were on board this in June. And there has been this turnaround in our vision, and I wanted to be a part of that because the calling was for the language and the culture, and looking at entities that last over 100 years. We were looking at an article one of my fellow directors shared, because Sealaska is coming up on its 50th anniversary. We're looking for, how do these companies continue? And one of the tricks and the keys we learned from the Japanese, who have entities that may be well over 1,000 years old, was they based it on culture. So the storyline that I'd like to take today is the intertwining and explain to everybody how that melds so well with the direction Sealaska is moving, and why culture and language is critical within that examination of ourselves. I think that the decisions that are being made are really reflective of what our relationship is with the land, the sea, the air, the things that are steeped in Sm'algya, steeped in Tlingit, and steeped in Hadkil. Those are all core values and elements. And by taking those and infusing them and intertwining them with the business relationship, we have a sure case for success. And what I'm looking at is creating our own narrative, our own way that we view the next 100 years. My narrative is called a quantum leap, because right now we have the ability to build this foundation, and that foundation can not only be rock, but it could be cement, it could be mortar, it could be rebar. It has to be very strong in what we do to hold up any business entities that involve land, water, and ocean or air, and our children, who are great grandchildren, who will someday be running those businesses. The intertwine is bringing value to our language. Today, we have this amazing group of people that sit with us, and I want to honor them for their work, because in Haida, in our culture, you come in on that canoe and you land on the beach and you're born. And when you leave this world, you get on that canoe and you leave. And it is the intersection between those times of arrival and departure that determine what you've done with your life. The people today have done some really, really amazing things, and they're young people. So that's even more inspiring. So I'm gonna go ahead, and I'm gonna move away from these ideas that I'm trying to express to you. And I think if I was going to pick one word today, I would pick hope. That was the word that I would choose to carry this 1 hour message, and how to pull you into our narrative and how to share it. One of the individuals who is going to be speaking today is Davy Boxley. And Davy, I kind of cheated. I called Nani Dolores up and I said, could you please describe for me in one short phrase what Davy Boxley means to you? And she said to me, he never gives up. She goes, that's more than one word, but he never gives up. And we had a big smile about that, because I recognize that you are on a master level of carving. You have apprenticed under Robert Davidson. You could go make $1 jillion, and yet you're home in your village carving out a pathway for future learners so that your language doesn't go to sleep. That to me is commendable. When you say it's hard, but you still made the right choice, I commend that. Davy will be the first one introducing himself. He will be followed by Kuyang and Ishalas. Kuyang is Ben Young from Heidelberg, and Marita Young, his wife. I asked Nani Dolores to describe you, Kuyang, in one word, and she said, kind. He's so kind. And I said, yeah, the kind like what we wish to be, but we know we're not. And we laughed really hard. And she said, and Marita Iskalas, who carries the same name as Dolores Churchill, which really indicates a level of high trust to carry her living name, is also, she said, my word for her is go get her. She said, forget everything because she's going to get whatever she goes after. And so those two, as a married couple, have brought home many of the things that our ancestors, our grandparents, our great grandparents wanted us to bring home. The education, to raise your babies at home, to teach them everything you could about our beautiful culture. And Heidelberg is so fortunate that Kuyang dedicated, I don't know how many years, probably over 15 years of his life already, and he's a young man, to specifically carrying our language forward. He runs the Hansinai. He's the director or the teacher, the lead instructor at the Hansinai. And they are both him and his wife, Iskalas, are part of this project, as is Davy Boxley. This is part of the program that they're carrying forward that allows them to work with fluent speakers. I'm going to also introduce Tangay. I think it's Hajak is his Haida name. Dr. Lance Twitchell. I'm going to ask him to also give a little intro on behalf of the Tlingit. He's Associate Professor of Alaska Native Languages, the Arts and Sciences and Humanities at the University of Alaska Southeast. He has his PhD, which I'm so proud of. He was recently honored at the First Alaskans Institute Young Native Leaders Award. He was given that award that recognized him as a person who had shown dedicated work to help Native people and communities with significant, profound purpose. And those are my three guests, and I would like to first call out Davy, and that followed by Kuyang and Iskalas, and follow that by Hungay. And once that's done, I will go back to having a chat with Miriah Twitchell about our relationship with Sealaska. So I'm calling you out, Didun. Haigua.
It's telling me my video won't start, but I'm gonna talk. Can you hear me? Okay. Simgiget, Sigram Hananak, Nikagiget, Kabawal Chikadet, Hadni get Gu Amoksusum Dak Amashagyon. Look, I yelled canoe, Tim da Achku, Tim Aliu Dak Wasam Ashagyon. Hadni Snum. In local bal dem moord kom naar algeram Sm'algya de Lingít de Haida nidi simgit go hathelsa den dil doelsum a yalkenu a will na de achkum dem sila hathelsu de gordemen luskum ski de lixi gedem rasam algeget go suelaux de dak oi hathelsa gwa nidi hashagudem zabu tratni orlament dak oi a yelkenu dem sila hathelsu de Sealaska de Tlingit and Haida dem galksa achska orlkum hathelsa gwa Oyaksut nusum will amuxusum dak amashagyon at a oyaksuna some Tsimshian go galm algera de shagyon at a shagodum how you amgot housum as Ka'illjuus at a nani Dolores gola gona housum ag oi Sipen toot newsum. Why what? Oyaksut newsum. Okay.
Calling out Kuyang.
Jahat alasi. Aya dalangas gusus hasti gudengai lagen. Gin klinges das gin iwan eating wet kling kwan kiling skatang as jitlu deman hasti gudengai lagen. Gum klikwanan kling ist angen. Hi. Wait, ik de lang kringen. Atalasi ik de lang guelansen de lang kill lagen. Giak gen itlen singit skagen. Iquanu hawan gen kwan kling istie gugen. Agis salit hikta handlai es gumslas honan harkir gusu angsam. Ilskialas iskan Jalafin iskan Ka'illjuus demano harkils katiet khungalang asjilu hasti gudengai lagen. Sealaska Haida iskan Tlingit and Haida Central Council Haida and Ansat Gudungan. Dalangan kil la awiagan. Awa. Uplan.
Hunge, Hawada. Hunge, you're up.
K'nilchish, yik echawe, achtu yik aya, yiyu katangi aya, sakhwa achi. Shukwa akho achtu asagu, shkeki aya, iyach sakai go aya khwan. Yish aya adat yutachtatan ya yidat. Yewa, yitlil kutlein. Chak oe awaka. Kaski aya. Lingít ani shukuchte tlid. Ya gach dugu aya ekte kukigut atli. Lingít ani ka. Iguchletid. Helswasakukwati idat. Yewa yega waka yel. Du tla du inakawanik. Du tla aya du ka kayawatlaki. Bilchish yek echa yuch satinil te katyuhan. Ya ha anyat kesani aya. Akak aya we zoom. Bilchish we yuch atangi. Ya hakasakhani ya dekina ka tsutskan. Bilchish aya te katyuhan ha yejin ha yuch atangi dateji ne. Kanakwe atina khayati. Kat haku uwu hayukatangi dataya gende hasidaki. Akawe kwasheka kwati. Heshatuash kuch a tlainach away. Tuya a tlainach away haditi. Hashakukta ha. Ye awe hatuati. Stakat uhan hayetki. Yanwad. Stakat ka, stakat sha. Hastu khainach aya. Kakwata aya hayukatangi. Yen kati aya akhua aya hanakaswu ati. Hastu jiyes aya tikte ni jagachtuni. Kaha iti kaku. Hastu jite gachtuti hayukatangi. Ye awe hatuati ya idat. Ye awe kagachtu ak. Wuchin, Chakayaka Kwati, Stakat at Aya Ha'ai, Sealaska Central Council. Ka Stakat at Aya Hatuasaku, Chakay at Yach, Aka Awe, Hayukatangi, Adat Aya Yejagach Tune Wuchin, Kasahan, Katilla Antin, Yewe Hatuasaku, Gulchish, Yewe.
Hoa Didun, Hoa. We're having a little delay in our video, which is fine with me. I kind of enjoying that, but I wanted to thank all my esteemed guests that are here today, and I'm going to call on Miriah to join me with this conversation. And it's just a little segue to explain to you the relationship that Sealaska has done. And she actually works in the Cultural Heritage and Education Department under Sarah Dibdal, and is the hands-on person for this information about this grant, about what they're doing. And so all I wanted to say is that I'm here today speaking on behalf of the directors of Sealaska, and I want to say that this relationship is mutual. It's really there's been a set aside for funding, an endowment, and so each year this will come about, and you can hear how successful that this program is becoming. And so I would ask also that I have to rely on Miriah to explain a little bit about what exactly this program is, what it's called, and then we will move into the question and answering with Hungé. So.
How Ka'illjuus.
Gua.
Gonna chish hat yugudi katla yuhat duasok dakluedi ayachat uvlalotak agnachak uvanga paglagipsi chade chatno. Katla is my Tlingit name. Agnachak is my Inupiaq name. I have recently started my own language learning journey the last few years, but my role here today is as the cultural program coordinator with Tlingit and Haida. And I just wanted to give a little overview and express my appreciation both to the Sealaska Board of Directors and to the Tlingit and Haida Leadership and Executive Committee for this wonderful opportunity and for leading by example. In 2019, Sealaska committed to this investment, $10 million investment to support Tlingit, Hadkil, and Sm'algya, and with an anticipated annual drawdown, and invited community members and organizations to apply for funding. And although I wasn't on board with Tlingit and Haida at the time, the leadership at both Sealaska and Tlingit and Haida met in 2009, as well as with the language learners, intermediate, mid to high level language learners, to talk about some of the barriers to language revitalization. And a lot of that meeting, as well as Sealaska's directive and investment in Indigenous language, really drove a proposal after I came on in March of 2020. We submitted in July at a Sealaska Shareholder Relations Committee, and we were advanced to the board and approved this summer. And what this project does is address some of those barriers that were identified by language learners. As many of us know, folks who reach an intermediate, mid, or high level of fluency have taken on an immense amount of personal commitment. Most of them have been described as warriors or hustlers, and they're juggling a million different things, oftentimes at their own expense. And it's difficult to continue some of those commitments and obligations when you are forced to rely upon grant-driven objectives or extremely onerous administrative burdens. And so we sought to remove some of those burdens in partnership with Sealaska by letting learners develop annual work plans, and by letting learners drive who they're going to work with and the hours that they have available for the work that they're doing, and really setting their own goals and doing everything that we can as organizations to support the learners in those goals. So this is a really unique opportunity that is tailored by the learners who have commitments, who have had to pull out of their own language learning because they are overly committed to helping others in this capacity. And so that drove a process for how we selected the
Oh, Miriah, come on.
from. And so we have 6 learners, 2 from each language family, and they are driving their own work plan that has some really exciting components, everything from transcription, translation work to recording new content with speakers. And I'll segue now so that we can hear from some of those learners and some of the work that they plan to do under this incredibly unique and very valuable opportunity. Gunachish, Sealaska, Gunachish, Tlingit, and Haida. And thank you for having us today.
That was amazing. Thank you for that summary. That was just, that really covered a lot. And so I'm going to invite my little brother, Hungay, to come forward and begin the question and answering period with the learners. And we will spend the majority of our time structured around the interaction of that. So Hungay, Hagwa, you ready?
Thanks, everybody. So I just want to start, and hopefully we don't freeze. We've been having a little bit of freezing issues here with their internet, but that's how our life is these days. I just want to briefly give a very quick statement about the state of our languages in Southeast Alaska. And the state is one of crisis. And so I know that there's been plenty of folks who've been saying this for decades, but I just want to continue to re-emphasize that nationally, it was about 10 years ago, Dr. Michael Krauss said, we stand to lose more North American native languages in the next 30 years than in the entirety of contact with European nations. And we need to keep that in mind. This is not going to fix itself. We need human beings, we need people to come and take control of the destiny of their languages. There's a Tlingit song that says, destiny is in your hands. And so it is the work of our people to take the languages from our previous generations to our future generations. Each of our languages is losing some of our most highly fluent speakers. We're really down to below a critical mass right now. But the good news is we have more people than perhaps ever before who are coming to learn the language. And we need to figure out how to identify all the barriers and remove them. If cost is a barrier, let's figure out how to do that without charging people money. If access is a barrier, let's get people access. Let's make all this stuff accessible. We want to create safe and welcoming environments that are free from some of the lateral violence that some of us have experienced. So what we want is to be able to tell people 1 or 2 generations from now, say, boy, we had it tough when we were learning the language. People were mean. But, you know, this is a part of coming back out of generations of loss and going into generations of gain. So that's what we're committed to here today, is to finding that safe space, to getting people going, to getting people to come along, and just to say, your ancestors are asking you to come and have a meal with them. And all you have to do is get to the table. So what we're looking for is positive reinforcement of each other, to hold each other up, to listen, to not always be criticizing and not always be correcting, but to honor our languages, the complexity of them, but to allow people time and space to grow. I believe 10 years from now, we're going to be looking at hundreds of speakers of each of these languages, maybe even thousands, at least on our way. But it is going to take systemic change, personal change, and changes within our own entities as well. So that if you can speak your language, you make more money, you just get, we put that onto some elevated space. So that's what I'm hoping. So to start with our roundtable, let's send this around and maybe we can go perhaps in the order that we introduced ourselves. And so I have spoken, so I probably won't be answering the questions, but I might chime in a couple things at the end, we'll see. So the first question is in 1 minute, tell us what you have been doing. What does this partnership mean to you? And why is it unique?
1 minute, huh?
one Tlingit minutes.
Well, what we've been doing, our main focus with this program is we were able to spend a few years with a fluent speaker and reached a level where we recognize that to get us over the hump, we need more opportunities for just speaking. So working with fluent speakers now over Zoom out of necessity, we're able to access speakers in BC. A lot of the speakers that are left of Somalia are in British Columbia. And we're working on that process of getting used to just using the language for everything. You know, the goal is to get to the point where the way I'm speaking English right now, that I'll be able to do that in Somalia. And we've got other projects going on too, but that's our main focus with this. What does the partnership mean? You know, like you said, we've been kind of ringing this bell for years about what we need and how we're going to do this. And I see this, the need to make as many fluent speakers as we can now, so that the responsibility of passing on our language isn't left to people like me who aren't fluent yet. You know, it will make the job so much harder for us if that's who is given the burden of trying to save our languages, that we have a chance now to do this. And thanks to Tlingit, Haida, and Sealaska, this opportunity is available. And why is it unique? They've listened to us. You know, we came to them and said, this is what we need, and this is what would make it easier to accomplish in the quickest time possible. So that ear that they gave us and their willingness to commit to it is one area that it's unique. The other that I want to point out today that I think is important is this is tribal sovereignty in action. Tlingit and Haida, the largest tribe in Alaska, and Sealaska have joined forces to guide our own destiny. We're doing it together, and I think this will be excellent proof that when we work together and put down the barriers of which organization is doing what, and we do it all together, that we're unstoppable. That wasn't 1 minute, but thank you.
Oh, it's Marita and Ben, I'll ask you folks the same question.
Oh, sorry, we're having technical difficulties. Sealaska hinu dikyaan atlangisati gudunai lagang. So what are we doing, I guess, and how are we doing it? You know, people look to Ben all the time and say, how did you learn the language? Haida language is so hard. How did you do it? And he says all the time, I put myself with my grandfather. 6-7 years, he didn't do anything else with his life but sit in his grandfather's home. So then I had to go back and say, okay, I want to learn so bad. I want to get to fluency. How did his grandpa do it? And I sat there a long time with Miju all these years with Ben and his grandpa. And Miju used to tell us, the only way I got this far is because I lived with my grandparents and I sat under the table with them. And I sat under the table and played with my toys while all the elders around me spoke the language and my grandparents spoke the language. So I looked to Ben and I said, I still want to learn. I still need to work with you. We live in the same home. I want to do this. And he said, Marita, I'm not it. He said, my grandpa learned from his grandparents and I learned from my grandpa, and your grandma is still alive and you need to put yourself with her. Now with the pandemic, I was like, okay, how do I do this? We're in different towns. And then Sealaska and Tlingit and Haida came to us and said, we have opportunity to bridge some gaps for some language learners, and offered me a vehicle to be with my non to learn the language. And I jumped on it. And he said, do it, put everything in your life aside, use this vehicle they're giving you, take this opportunity, give your non honor, learn from her, because Ben is not the answer that I need. I need to be with my non and learn the language from her. And I am so blessed to have that opportunity from Sealaska. And I don't want to get emotional because I don't know where this is broadcasted, but so then I was like, okay, I'm going to sacrifice. I'm going to take a month to decide. Maybe I took a little while. I don't just jump on things. And I said, why would I do this? And Ben said, if you're going to do this, it's going to take time. It's going to take buckling down. It's going to take sacrifice. If you're going to do this, I want you to hang a picture in our house of your why, because you're not going to become fluent without a why. And I was like, what would that one picture be that I seen every day? Why? And I kept thinking, like, why would I do this? And what is my true passion? Because Ben's passion is language. It's easy for him. He loves languages. He loves all languages. That's his why. That is not my why. And when I was like, what is my why in this world? And the only picture I could think of and the only picture I could come up with was that would make me put a fire in my belly to learn every single day was a picture of missing and murdered Indigenous women. And I said, that's my passion, to bring back our culture and to bring back a structure where women are respected, women are honored. And I was like, why did that go away? Why are Alaska Native women the most raped women in the country? Why are they the most murdered? Why are our women missing? Where is our backup? Where are our warriors? What do we need to do to make sure that my daughter isn't a statistic, that I'm not a statistic? What could I do so that Hanseenai children do not become a statistic? And that is my why, is to get our voice back. And in order to get our voice back and our respect in our culture and our respect, and start growing our Haida culture back to where it was before genocide, is to get our language back and to empower my daughter to speak our language and my son, and to know where the women stand in our culture. And when we are all fluent, and we are standing with our heads held high and our backs straightened as women, we will not be victims, and we will not be statistically the most harmed population in this country. And that is my why every single day, when I have to make all the sacrifices to learn the language and to pass it on and to make sure our babies are learning and our children in our schools are learning. That is my why.
How incredible. Thank you both, and thank you all for sharing your words. I just want to take a moment to acknowledge them, say they're not going out into space. We're going to grab these words and they're going to fuel us and others. I want to talk for a moment about the Tlingit team through this project, which is Shkeki, Heather Powell, and Kuk, David Strong, who are working in Huna and Klakwan respectively, and both are trying to work with elders. These are really tough times. They are already tough times for those working in our language, but then you add this pandemic, which in many ways has been horribly managed. And so now we got to take 9 months where we can't go see our elders. And that really creates a crisis on top of a crisis. And so I thought about that when we first were experiencing the shift as it began to move across the United States. But I want to take a second and talk briefly about what they're doing, not to speak for them, but Shkeki, Heather Powell, was going to join us, but just recently lost her father. And so we want to send our love and support to her direction. Both of them are intermediate language learners, and I think both of them feel kind of like they've just been on this plateau for a long time. And so what they're both trying to do is working with recordings, working with elders, trying to move forward and figure out, how do I move myself ahead so that I can teach other people? Because once you start teaching an indigenous language, it doesn't take you very long to realize, I'm not that much farther ahead than my students. I need to run. I'm trying to teach them how to walk, and I need to run ahead. And so, but I just want to take a moment and to acknowledge what they are trying to do. And it's a challenge. Some of our communities, many of our communities, have very few speakers remaining. And those speakers who are remaining, who are birth speakers, and I don't like to say fluent, not fluent. I like to say fluency in terms of a scale, because we can all climb up that scale. And moving towards the next question, I just want to also say there's not just one person, or not just two people, and we always got to push back on that narrative that there's groups of people. But to be honest, like, there's maybe 20 of us in the whole region who are trying to keep this whole thing going and bring speakers from, dwindling down to just 10 or fewer to thousands. So just thinking of the next question, how do we get our languages to a place where we say, okay, I feel like we're becoming sustainable, right? We are getting there. And I want to acknowledge Sm'algya. I saw that you were out there, and I know there are other language teachers and learners who are out there. But just to look at this panel and say, 5 years from now, what do you think it would be like if you say we are on a path to sustainability?
Well, programs like this, I think, are a great start, because every time we have come up to these, new language programs that are, attempted with all of the best of intentions, and we run into the roadblock that we don't have the capacity to do what we want to do. There aren't enough teachers. The fluent speakers or the birth speakers, as you said, are getting to an age where it's difficult for them to keep up with children, and even just the rigor of class schedules, like university class schedules. It's a challenge, and it shouldn't, in a perfect world, it shouldn't be on them. It shouldn't be on 80-year-olds to take us where we're going. And the fact that it is, as far as where the knowledge needs to come from, is all the more reason for those of us young enough to work our tails off to make sure that we accomplish this goal. So programs like this, I think that sustainability comes from investment, whether that's moral support or financial support from every single Native organization and tribe that can do it. I remember when we first started this journey, when I did the Hashuka program at SHI, Jeremy Green said, why isn't the goal of creating fluent speakers in every Native organization's motto or goal, their list of goals, and it should be, because we need the support, and it's one of the things that again, programs like this will help ensure. And when we think about tribal colleges, language nests, K through 12 language programs, that all requires capacity. So support for creating new fluent speakers now will create sustainability, and it'll make it the job that we've had that's been so hard of creating opportunities. Like I said in the video at the beginning of this, I'd love to just take a class, but I have to organize the classes, or I have to create the curriculum or the content. The hope of sustainability is that we create capacity so that it gets easier for everybody else, and the people who can't take the time for any reason to put in the investment that we have, because everybody's got lives and different things going on, will make it so that more people can have access to this important work that that our people truly need. And that's also a goal. I hope that we get better at explaining why it's worth it for everyone to get on board this journey with us.
Yeah.
Is it my turn?
Yes, same question.
Okay, I'm just making sure. So I just want to echo what Davey said. I'm glad I get to go after him because he says it all. Build capacity. And in order for us to be where we need to be in 5 years, we need to bring people with us. We need to bring families with us where we're going. We need to bring learners with us. And I think, I always think of this sentence that Nani Jane had told us about, and she said as kids they'd hear it all the time, and it was
Lucy from Nani Lucy.
oh, from Nani Lucy, and
That
she
told
said
Jane.
that told Jane, yeah, she would say as kids they always heard this phrase "Dung ich gedesam." It was constantly put in their ear. You are going to prosper. You're going to be somewhere of high status when you're older. So I always think what we need as learners when we dedicate ourselves, we need like affirmation. Okay, we're on this journey. It's hard. We don't know. We don't have these like benchmarkers, how far we're getting, when we're getting there, you know, like when we've reached where we need to get. So it's like if we could just have that, a lot of capacity come with us, and then a lot of positive affirmation that we're heading in the right direction from everyone around us, and jump aboard, jump on the canoe. We want everyone with us so that when our kids are older, the capacity is greater and greater. Just it trickles down to generations.
Oh, excellent. So maybe we'll reverse the order. So Marita, I'll ask you this one first. Just thinking, there's a lot of folks who I hear will say, I would love to learn blank language, but, you know, and then there's some kind of reason. So I'm always trying to sort of find those reasons so I can get rid of them. But just so to sort of think about our learners, where do you think someone starts if they say, I'm going to learn Hatkil, I'm going to learn Sm'algya, I'm going to learn Tlingit? How does a learner get started, and how do they keep themselves from just getting stuck on a plateau?
I did not pre-read these questions, but I have a really good answer. So I hear that a lot. I get to that point a lot in my learning journey, and I'm like, I can't even, like, I don't even know where I could get the resources, or how I could get a link to this, or how I could grow my language learning on this journey. It's not a class, it's not anything you could take. And I'm just going to revert back to my non-Dolores. And when I went to visit her, she said, I have a tape of my mom speaking Haida, and I listen to it every day. I have a tape of John Enrico, a linguist, and I listen to it every day, and I practice. And I want to reiterate that Dolores is a fluent speaker of our language, and every day she listens to the language as a fluent speaker so she doesn't forget anything. And so it's that simple. When you get stuck, you listen to that same tape over and over, and you perfect those same things. And even if you feel crazy and you're talking back to the tape and you're putting in your own opinions, and these old tapes that are made available, like when Ben and his grandpa have conversations on YouTube, sometimes I'll put myself in the little YouTube video and act like I could have an opinion in the language, even though it's a tape I'm talking to. So it's like, just utilize what you have and go for it. And even if it's just that single tape. Okay, Ben wants to say something.
There's a reason why the podcast industry is blowing up, right? Because it fills a void that we thought that we didn't have. We didn't have time to listen to this. We don't have time to listen to that. But yes, we do. We have time when we're cleaning the house. We have time when we're cooking, or we have time when we're chopping wood, whatever it is, and we have earbuds in. Everyone has that time, you know what I mean, to do tasks, to do housekeeping, whatever it is, making your bed. That's the time when people listen to podcasts, and that's the time that you could easily just replace listening to good, fluent speaking conversations instructions. We have Tlingit. I don't know about Sm'algya, but Tlingit and Haida, of course, have rich resources. A lot of things online too, that you could just throw in just to get acquainted with it. I feel like there also needs to be, well, I guess that answers your question. Hune. But I also see the great need for us to normalize it, right? I don't think any of us, because a lot of us who aren't in the language community, when that's spoken around to anybody else, you know, they tend to think, so-and-so may be talking about me. I don't understand what they're saying, but, you know, here's a mean mug thrown your way. You know, whatever it is, that's our own people. And if anyone could if we could give anyone advice, it would be to make room for that, make it important, because the kids who come from the houses who appreciate the language are going to learn it a lot faster, a lot quicker, and with more passion, I think. In a household and in areas where it's normalized. Uklan.
Yeah, it's my journey. You know, everybody's journey is different in this, and similarly to Ben in this way, we're fortunate to have had opportunities within our families to start, you know, our path, and not everybody has those opportunities. So there's a certain amount of trepidation, I think, and fear that comes with starting something like this. And part of the lesson I've learned, and I hope I can pass on to anyone who is starting their journey or wants to advise anyone on starting their journey, is to work on letting go of the fear of the fear of making a fool of yourself, the fear of stumbling. You know, babies go through that with language, and they don't stop trying to speak the language that they're exposed to and learning, and that's tough for adults. It's, you know, we have a natural inclination to not want to be embarrassed in front of our peers, but I really that's one of the best bits of advice I think I could give, is to work on letting go of that, letting go of your ego, be willing to be corrected, be willing to try again. And for S'm'algya, there are some great resources. I'm posting one there right now. It's the new version of the Talking Dictionary. There's also, I don't know the whole address, but I know it's sm'algya.ca, where you can listen to oral history read by fluent speakers or told by fluent speakers. The Hike Foundation, our nonprofit, has learning materials, and people can contact us if they'd like any help, things like that. It really comes down to, like I said, at this point, also going into it knowing that it's going to be hard. You know, we're all working, those of us on this call, and a lot more, like you said, way more than just me doing this for S'm'algya, and we're all working hard to make it so that it's not so hard for everyone. But it's going to be a challenge. Learning a language that you can rarely be immersed in is hard, and it's one of the reasons we asked for the help that we're so thankful that Sealaska and Tlingit and Haida have provided to us. So don't be shy. Oh, and find people to do it with. Find people you can text. Find people that are going to support you, because they're in it too. Not every group or every approach works for everybody, and don't give up when one doesn't work. Find another that does. Your language belongs to you. That, I think that's something that we all need, because there's such shame associated with the loss of our language. That shame is carried by all of our people. It's not our fault. But if we can work through that and realize that it's ours to take back, And I hope that every new learner can go into it with that it's their right to have it. And be ready to make a fool of yourself. I'm really good at that, making a fool of myself. So.
Fantastic. We're going to have to wrap it up and turn it back over to our hosts. But I'm glad all the things that you folks brought up was just wonderful. And normalizing the languages, yes, and the vernacular also, which means it has to be what you use for your day-to-day conversation. You have to have a group of people who you make a commitment to. We will not speak to each other in another language because we have to redefine our relationship and we have to make this journey together, and it's completely possible. And you have to just move past those misfires. So if your conversation goes, how are you? I'm fine. How are you? I'm fine. What are you doing? It's raining. It is raining, right? Just don't break out to correct anybody in English. Just sort of just go through. So I guess I'll give you my 30-second answer from each of you. Let's go David and then Marita and also Ben. What future do you see for our languages and how do we get there? What's your call to action in 30 seconds?
I'm very hopeful. The Juneau Sm'algya Learners Group is fantastic. They host Zoom sessions on Saturdays for beginners and those of us who like to call in. They're fantastic. It's people like that who have committed to this that give me hope. And I always tell them I always wish we all live in one place so we could just talk to each other every second of every day. But it's that hopefulness. My teacher Sarah Booth told us that there's always hope, and that we can't let the challenge of this stop us from doing what we need to do. And when she passed this year, my gut reaction, other than the sadness of losing her, was I got to get to work. I got to get to work for Sarah and for our people. The results of us doing this work goes beyond people being able to say words in our language, beyond describing the weather. The positive impacts of language revitalization will be drops in suicide rates, reduction of substance abuse. It'll be improvement of grades in schools. All the problems that plague our people that are a result of colonization, that are a result of language loss, can be healed by this. And it's so worth fighting for. And I see a bright future for our people if we can get this job done. And I see that we're on the right track to do that.
Sheesh. Marita?
So you're asking for like a 30-second call to action. What could new language learners do? Is that correct? Okay.
What's the future and how do we get there?
What's the future?
Okay. Okay, so the future I see is just take as much or as little of the language you can and hold on to it and speak it to your children. They're gonna thank you for generations to come, even if they know 10 words, if they know 100 words, if they know 1,000 sentences, whatever little bit we could pass on to the next generation. I guarantee you the future looks like us being able to empower our own future, to show them it's possible to take back our language, to hold on to it, to even if it's just a little bit of that language is going to mean so much to them. And I'm just really thankful that my Nana is willing to teach me what she knows and willing to give me the information. And if you could grab the information, hang on to it and pass it on, that's the key.
I think the future for us is going to be a prioritization of language use in each one of our areas. I admired going to Quebec and all of them assuming that you need to know a little bit about French. That's how it's going to be when you go to Heidelberg. That's how I imagine it to be when you go to Juneau. That's how I imagine it to be when you go to Metlakatla. You're going to need to know a little bit, or at least be respectful of the land that you're going to, and know a thing or two about the lingo. I see it working. It's going to have to start in our homes and then work its way out from there. That includes me. That includes all of us with young families. If we're going to prioritize it, and if we're going to prioritize it, it is going to be at our ceremonies. It is going to be at our community gatherings. There isn't going to be one that goes by without hearing one, if not all of those languages, especially in the hubs like Ketchikan, where you have a good amount of all the tribes present. But again, it's gonna take not just words, but actions, right? It's one thing to know something, it's another thing to do something about it.
Ish, Hawa, Doyekson, Ka'illjuus, we'll hand it back over to you.
I want to thank everybody that I want to wrap this up because that was an absolutely beautiful conversation. Thank you so much. Oh, really think highly of the way you did that. Thank you. Everybody out there in the audience, I want to tell you that the goal for this talk today is to communicate what Sealaska Board of Directors supports in the form of culture and language and how it ties in with who we are in our identity as business people. Also, the collaboration, the sovereignty, the intertwined with our tribal entities. We've needed this for the last 40 years and we know it. And so here it is. So let's go with that flow. And I also want to say thank you to the Dolores Churchill. Thank you to Sarah. May she rest in peace. Thank you to the speakers, to the David Katzicks of the world. Our Kunisi, our ancestors are with us here today. And I got to tell you, we're going to be the ancestors for our great grandbabies. So we got to do our best and we've got to perform at a peak level here. I hope that the audience understands the critical nature of this, the reason why we're listening to our speakers who have lived the life and are trying to create a pathway for the rest of us. Take their words to heed. They're very, very, very important words in a healing framework. Let's emphasize that. I heard that several times. Again, I want to thank my co-host, Miriah Twitchell, for eloquently laying it out. This is what's going on. And it was so clear to me. And I want to thank her for that because it really saved me a lot of trying to say something I had no way to express in such a clear manner. So everybody, thank you. I'm one of the ones who feel the greatness of this, but as far as the language learners, we have a lot of nerds out there, people who can really, really, really turn their lives around, their children's life. And don't forget the nanas. We have the intergenerational that is critical to this mass, to this teaching. So I want to throw one out there for the matriarchs. And thank you everybody for the absolutely beautiful words of wisdom. And I hope this happens again. And I want to hear some communications from the people who listened. How can we do this in the best forum so that you can walk away saying that was worth watching, that was worth listening to, and that's something that I want to hear again. So share that with us. And with that, I close this very wonderful forum, and thank you again, everybody. I wish I could hug you, but hey. Awesome. Amazing.